Anybody thought you had to say something like how to get on the moon launch, that's probably next door. So before we get started here, I want to ask once again, how many people here are using APRS already?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right.
That's what we wanted to see.
Look, you got a radio, he's got a radio, we got a radio, everybody's got a radio.
Packets flying all over.
Just a protocol, I think, a couple weeks. If you need the restroom, go out the door and take it to the right. It's the building down there. You know, it's a regular building, not a porta potty. It seems pretty decent. So, you know, the important things is maybe you got sooner or later. I just assume if there's an emergency or fire, walk out the door and just go out in the field. Nobody told us that. You know, don't sit here and burn out.
Yeah, watch out for the power cords hanging in the back of the 220.
We're going to record this. Does anybody have any problems with recording this session? Just want to do full disclosure. Okay, let me introduce the Grand Poobah here of APRS, Jeff Hochberg, who's the president of the APRS Foundation. I'm John Carbox, I'm the founder and vice president, and we both are actively involved in the APRS Golden Packet. How many people have heard of the Golden Packet? Just a couple. We're going to learn about it here as part of the assignment of APRS. At this point, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
Good morning. So, as John said, well, welcome to the APRS State of the Union. Really appreciate you guys spending the next hour with us. My name is Jeff Hochberg, W4JEW. I am located in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am president and a co-founder of the APRS Foundation. We'll talk a little bit more about who the foundation is later on, but right now the focus is more on APRS. I am the lead on the annual Golden Packet, or Appalachian Trail Golden Packet, which is John alluded to earlier. We'll talk a little bit more about that event later. Our illustrious Vice President, John, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's John Carbox. I'm from Maine. And I'm loving this warm weather. You guys did a great job, giving me a good reception. When I got in my car to go to the airport, it was -7 degrees. Okay? So in case you guys were wondering what you were missing down here in Florida, and the snow is still white, it still piles up, I assure you. And so I flew down to Atlanta to meet Jeff. We drove down together, and it was 70 degrees when I landed in Atlanta. And it's the first time I've been warm since, I don't know, 6 months.
Yeah, I gave him a salt tablet as soon as he walked off the plane. So.
Yeah, so my background on APRS is that, I think it was 2016 if I remember, there's this event, the Golden Packet, you're going to learn about. People go to the top of mountains. And that year, up near me is Sugarloaf Mountain. They didn't have somebody for Sugarloaf, and I don't quite know how I got involved in this. It's like everything else, you know, suddenly you find yourself in the middle of it. It's like, who sucked me in? Where did I sign up? You know, but Bob Rahinga calls me up and he says, I'm going to send you a radio. I'm going to send you one of these D72 radios. He says, it's all set up. Whatever you do, don't change anything. Go to the top of the mountain, turn it on. It will just work fine as long as you don't screw it up. Don't change anything. And then when you're done, send it back to me. And I did that, and I loved it, and it was just a lot of fun doing the APRS. So the next year I went out and bought myself one of these Kenwood D710s to use in future events. So I've been doing it ever since. And so that's my background. That's how I got into APRS.
Yeah, you know, I didn't even remember I'm supposed to cover my background with APRS. So I got my ticket back in 2015. And learned about this type of antenna called the tape measure Yagi antenna. My second HT was a Kenwood D74. I remember, you know, I just built my tape measure Yagi. I connected it to the D74, had a satellite tracking application on my iPhone. I hadn't even walked out of the house. I mean, I was like still in my living room, and I was already hearing packets from the digipeater on the ISS. I was hooked from that moment on just packet in general, but more so specifically APRS. My focus really started out purely on ISS just because of my interest in space, but APRS just became such a huge part of my focus, and obviously President APRS Foundation that probably became amplified just a little.
So as you can see, he's the guy that knows what he's doing. I was the guy like, wait a minute, Bob, which is the button that turns on? Because you told me not to press any of the other ones. So it's simple. If I can do it, well, you guys are already doing it. But
yeah, what happened here? One second here. I hit something by accident. Really, I'm a technologist, so. All right, let's move on. So, agenda, what is APRS? I think most of you guys probably have that covered, just given how many hands we saw. What you can do with APRS, getting started with APRS. Again, I think most folks in the room probably have a pretty good idea of that, but we're going to go over some things that you may not know about APRS and what you can do with it. A little bit about the foundation and how you can get involved. And getting involved is not so much with learning how to use APRS, but following along with what we're doing and how you can contribute.
before we go, I just want to let you guys know, the whole slide deck is going to be up on the web. You don't have to take notes. There's no test. You can download the deck out afterwards for all the references. So don't worry about trying to write it down.
So you guys may recognize this guy here on the screen, but Craig, KM6LYW, I think it's the only ham that has a channel on YouTube where he plays his own bumper music in the beginning. Craig and is good friends with us, and has been following along with the Golden Packet. Craig has a project called DigiPi, which is an image that's designed for the Raspberry Pi platform. Really like a
seen his channel? How many are you familiar with?
I have to check him off.
Yeah, okay. Well, highly recommend it.
Yeah, so in any event, Craig, we asked Craig how he really got started with APRS, and I kind of do already, but he's an avid backpacker. I was going to say Rocky Mountain High, but he spends a lot of his time, he lives in California, so he spends a lot of his time in high Sierra Mountains, over 8,000 feet above sea level. It didn't take long for him to realize there's no cell phone towers up there. Even if he needs help, if something happens to him, he really has no way of calling out for assistance. So he got into Packet pretty early on, and subsequently found APRS. Realized it provided a great way for him to keep in touch with his wife and his daughter. I think he outfitted his daughter with an HD and a mobile linked and APRS Droid on Android phone, and being able to keep in touch with them while he was up in the mountains was just like really sealed the deal for him with APRS. Again, he is the creator of DigiPi. We see here, this is, if you've never seen DigiPi before, again, it's like a turnkey solution loaded on an SD card, throw it in a Raspberry Pi with an audio interface in it, and you can pretty much turn any 2-meter radio into APRS enabled radio. It's a fantastic solution. Craig has quite the following on YouTube. You can go to digipi.org and download the image. Just really, really awesome solution. What is going on here? I have to turn this thing off. All right. So, what is APRS? Well, APRS, is really a protocol. So, in and of itself, probably not the most exciting thing. It is based on AX.25, created by Bob Bruniga, WP4 APR back in the early 80s. He created it during his time with the Navy. It was originally used for tracking ships, but then he realized pretty early on that it would be great application for use in the ham radio world. And I think he released it for the Apple II initially, and then shortly afterwards for DOS. So there was the APRS DOS application. It's really what we would consider to be a transport layer protocol. So, on the IP, more like networking side, if you're familiar with TCP/IP, it is kind of like a mid-layer protocol. So, really, the areas of the model that we're most concerned about are transport layer and application layer. This is transport layer. Really, all the excitement though about APRS is at the application layer. We'll go into that a little bit more. One of the biggest benefits of APRS too is minimal bandwidth requirements. It's really doesn't use up a ton of battery, so if you need to use it remote for an extended period of time, it's something that's really, really reliable. And its strongest points are its ability to provide messaging, so sending, receiving text messaging, telemetry information that could be anything, including like weather data. We have a friend that monitors IoT devices in his house using APRS. And more. And really, the biggest thing about APRS is it's all real time. It's not a store and forward system like WinLink is. So you send a packet, it's received immediately, and subsequently you receive a packet, and you can digikeep that and relay that to others. A lot of time, the benefit of APRS and what we see is no reliance on infrastructure. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And of course, all through the beauty of ham radio, where all you really need is your technician license, and you can get started with APRS. So one of the things we commonly hear is, kind of APRS is dead. APRS is far from dead. This is just United States. And we did a little bit of a check. This is an application called APRS IS32. It was written by Lynn Deckenbaum, KJ4ERJ. Unfortunately, he became a silent T at the beginning of December. Now, this is pretty much like the de facto Windows application for APRS. And you see pretty heavy concentration of stations all throughout the United States. Globally, we were seeing about 50,000 nodes online. And those are just nodes that are connected to the APRS IS, or the internet connected side of APRS. That doesn't even give you an idea of how many RF only stations are out there. At least another 25 to 50% of that number. Of course, there are RF-based systems that are getting iGates, so we're seeing those as well. But there are a lot of standalone systems out there that we're seeing. If you look at even like other parts of the world, like Europe and Japan, even heavier concentration of APRS-enabled devices connected to the APRS IS. When we say local, how many of you guys are familiar with this site, vhf.dxu? It used to be called Menolink, I think was the domain associated with it, but it got renamed to dxu.com or vhf.dxu.com. It just so happened the other night when I hit this page and took this screenshot, there is some pretty serious tropospheric ducting going on in the southeast here. And, from, like this area here in like Charleston, South Carolina, all the way down to Louisiana, which is like over 500 kilometers. The beautiful thing about this map is this is all driven by APRS. So it is not, voice comms. It is literally picked up. You can see here, these are actual digipeaters, or rather iGates that are sending information in. This map updates effectively in near real time. So this is actual traffic sent and received, not theoretical. As far as that no reliance on infrastructure, this means that actually getting traffic across that sort of distance isn't theoretical. It is a reality. And so that is without the APRS IS involved at all. The APRS IS, or Internet Connected side of it, is just being used to report or feed into this application. So we saw 507 kilometers that night, which is pretty darn impressive. If you spend any time on this site again, you'll see it update in your real time. Absolutely fascinating to watch. So what is a digipeater? It's a digital repeater, and designed for relaying packets. So you don't have any of that tropospheric ducting going on. Digipeaters are a great way to extend the coverage area. This graphic here on the right comes compliments of a gentleman by the name of Stephen Smith at U8 LMF. Stephen is a real big advocate for APRS. He keeps another Windows application for APRS called UIView32 going. As fast as possible. But really it's a repeater, a TNC, and just that combination alone gives you digifeeding capabilities. And then when you take the digipeater and connect it to the internet, well, then you actually have an iGate. We see here, effectively, took the most typical, what we call the new N paradigm, or wide 1-1, wide 2-1, and really that covers, how many hops that packets can be retransmitted. You see kind of like more wide coverage digifeeders, still in digifeeders, but between a really highly concentrated area of digifeeders, you get really, really solid coverage. And even in areas that are not so heavily populated, we have a friend of ours that's in the Southern Oregon, Northern California area. He relies on two digifeeders on high tops in Southern Oregon, and that's how he actually keeps in touch with his family, because cell phone coverage there is really poor.
If I could just, Jeff, real quick.
Yeah.
Let's say this happens to be a 50-watt Kenwood radio here. Here's an HT. So let's say you're going hiking and you have this on your car. You got like a quarter wave on your car, but you take this out, it's a couple of watts. Well, this isn't going really far on its own when you're standing in the trees. So you send a packet out. You tell the radio you want it to be retransmitted. Your car hears it, sends it out again at 50 watts, which means it's going to go to a much wider area, and it's probably going to get picked up by one of those eye gates he's talking about, going to the internet. But if it didn't get digifeeded by this, like if the tree fell in the forest, did anyone hear it? Right? So that's a common use for hikers. They'll carry one of these, leave this going in their car to retransmit, and it's both ways. This would retransmit the message coming in.
Does it work across bands?
What's that?
Does it work across brands?
These radios would, but the way it's working, it's basic setup is all on 2 meters. So what happens on our APRS frequency 144.39, it sends the message out. This radio hears it, and after the transmission is received, then it retransmits it on the same frequency. So it's not like analog repeaters with split frequencies.
But it's not crossband, and it just repeats what it hears.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Generally,
Yeah.
you could make it, you could say receive on one band and transmit on the others. You could do that.
Could you-
But that's not the general
And
case.
these you handheld with a Kenwood?
Oh, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a standardized packet, so it's sort of like your website. You can see it in Firefox, you can see it in Chrome. You should get them either way.
Is it audio recorded? So is it done through 2-meter FM?
Yes.
So audio frequency shift key. So if anybody remember the old dial-out motos, it went, or listen to it, that's what you hear.
Yeah, you actually hear it sounds like very much like motor traffic, at least at 1200.
Oh, it doesn't require a digital 2-meter FM?
It does not, no. But there is also what we refer to as APRS. So if you like in the D-Star world, there is an implementation of APRS, or very APRS-like, in that you can get radios from ICOM, even the Kenwood HTs, the B74, D75 that support D-Star, they will also talk DPRS, but you do not need a digital radio in order to use APRS. In fact, it's the TNC, or terminal node controller, that's actually what kind of does the encode and decode from analog to the digital signal. Then that gets sent out over just FM analog and picked up by other radios that have TNCs. In it.
This radio has a 1200 baud modem in it,
Yeah.
and that's what it uses. So if you've ever accidentally picked up the phone when you were on dial-up internet, that's what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Is you're hearing that burst of data. That's what's going on.
Part of this is sort of like, you buy a bottle fan, you can talk to your neighbor. Or if you go out and take care of your Yagi, you can bounce it off the satellite space station. So, there's the basics, and then there's a lot more you can do. So focusing on the basics, it's just 1200 watt on 2 meters on the national frequency, and it's audio frequency shifting.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
So the APRS IS, or Internet Services aspect of APRS, is really the Internet linking. So this allows us to connect together two or more RF locations, or even just Internet to Internet stations. And this actually gives us global capabilities with APRS. You can transmit a packet, in Atlanta, and then pick it up down here with so basically the packet is sent over the air in Atlanta, gets picked up by an iGate, gets sent through the internet, comes out through an iGate down here in Orlando area, and then potentially could be picked up by radios down here, and that because the internet is all over the place, it really can apply anywhere in the world. So the APRS-IS is effectively what allows us to extend APRS outside of just kind of that local coverage area and provides worldwide connectivity. Interesting part about the APRS-IS specifically, it is specifically restricted to ham radio nodes. And we use nodes, we're talking about internet connected devices or RF devices that talk to iGates. There is, and real quick, just to show you some statistics about usage of APRS, our friend Hesu, who runs APRS.fi, he provided some statistics yesterday, just in terms of the past 24 hours, roughly about 61,000 unique call signs. When we say call sign plus SSID, so you can run what we call an SSID, which is your call sign, and then a numeric value, and that value can be anywhere from 0 to 15. So you can effectively have 16 APRS devices associated with a single call sign at any given point in time. But this is unique call signs plus SSIDs that were observed on the APRS-IS past 24 hours, past 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, well over 150, 160,000, up to almost 200,000 unique call sign plus SSIDs. Again, if people tell you that APRS is dead, we've got hard and fast statistics that says by far it is not. And it's very much in use, has an extremely widely adopted install base, extremely well vetted. It's been around for probably like 34, almost 40 years at this point. And it is used by people every single day all around the world.
Jeff, if I could just real quick, so like I'm more the Homer Simpson here, he's Mr. Wizard. There's a lot of terms here, but in really simple terms, some people take radios like this, hook it to a computer, send and receive to the internet what's going on. So let's say he's trying to send me a message. He transmits one of these radios, receives it, goes on the internet to the IS system is what he's talking about. And suppose I'm over in, say, New York City. Well, I'm not going to hear it correct. What happens is that internet system, it remembers the last time it heard me. And it says, oh, my call's in New York City. So what happens is when it gets that on the internet, it says, I want to send that message to John. Where is he? It knows he last heard me in New York City. So it's going to send it out through the repeaters the iGates that last heard me, and it will show up on my radio. And
That's how it's going to blast it all over the world. Yeah, that's a great point.
And these iGates, you can run one of these iGates, anybody can run one. It's relatively simple. You could be using that little DigiPi, the Raspberry Pi. You hook it to the radio, hook it to the internet, and that's how it gets on and off the internet.
Thanks for that. So, I mentioned just a moment ago that APRS-IS specifically is reserved for ham radio connected nodes. There's a slightly less known version of the APRS-IS called FireNet. FireNet is maintained by a group of folks in the Mid-Atlantic region. Actually, one of the gentlemen that we've done the Golden Packet event with, I just realized I found that out a couple of days ago. But FireNet is everything on the APRS-IS plus a variety of third-party feeds. So you can see real-time information about weather, obviously about fires, and the weather information comes in through what are called METAR reports, which are primarily used in the aviation space, but provides a really great interface for pulling that data in real time and then sending it out through the FireNet network. Volcano activity, earthquakes, so it's not just limited to ham radio specifically, so it's everything ham radio plus additional data. And they have freedom to make adds, moves, or changes at any point in time to introduce or remove additional feeds. And really, FireNet was intended specifically for emergency responders. We'll talk about it in a couple of minutes here, but APRS is used very heavily in the search and rescue space. So having access to this sort of information in real time is incredibly, incredibly important.
So, Jeff, that reinforces your earlier point. that APRS is like an intermediary level. Think of it like HTTP or one of the protocols. The real magic is what you build on top of it. So FireNet is essentially built on top of that APRS protocol, which allows FireNet to communicate your data.
Great point. So let's mosey on over here and talk about what you can actually do with APRS. Again, APRS in and of itself, again, is just that kind of transport layer protocol, and it's kind of not really all that exciting. It's what you can do with APRS where things get really interesting, really exciting. In that, so there's an event that was originally derived from, well, Bob Bruniga, before APR. You know, he is effectively the father of APRS, mentioned it a little bit earlier. But this is what we call an ad hoc network. Really, is a network of APRS enabled systems, all RF based. You know, typically a single digiketer and then a number of you know, roaming devices can be really fired up at any point in time. So our friend Jason over here, along with the Daytona Beach Amateur Radio Association, are actually running an APRS Day Out event today through Sunday. You can go meet with those guys. Where do they pod to, you said? Or
They're not pod to. They're very, very close to the back of the center.
okay.
Yeah, here, could you stand up and maybe just a little louder?
He said, yeah, see,
It's near the bathrooms in the RV section.
It's near the bathrooms in the RV section. So to understand these day out concepts, they have a special frequency, not the normal APRS frequency. So the traffic is limited to just the event that people hear. And on the sheet, if you come get one of these at the end, all the details here, the backside's all about the day out. And as they said, you've got the real friendly folks over there. Daytona group is hosting that. Go over and see them, say hello. They'll help you get your radio set up. I understand that, you know, I don't know how they've got a big crowd there, but they got burgers. They give you a bottle of water. They're very friendly, so I encourage you to go over and see them.
yeah, so yeah, we started working with them early on and introduced Jason to them. So you know, they really built out so the you know, the overall structure of the day out event. But you know, you could even do a day out yourself with a couple of radios and maybe a third radio as a digiketer, just to experiment with it. If you have an APRS enabled radio with you, you know, go over there again. They'll help you get it set up, and then you can be part of the event. Why would we run it on a separate frequency? Because we want to keep that day out traffic from polluting the traditional APRS network on 14439. So, you know, not only do they use what we call a different path, UN paradigm, the Y1121, we use temp11 or temp21, and then yet that's another way to ensure that only stations that are participating in day out, not just on a different frequency, but also configuration-wise, are able to relay traffic throughout the ad hoc network.
Do we have anybody in the group from the Daytona Beach Club? Right here. Yeah. Is there anything we should add or they need to know about you guys? I'm just going to hear you. Dude, is there anything they need to know about your group and this day out? What, a big thank you from your club for doing this. It's a big plus. So thank you.
What else can you do with APRS? We see a lot of weather state. Again, APRS, real-time protocol. We care about what's happening now, not what happened yesterday or the day before. Well, you know, maybe you do, but if you care about what's happening right now, APRS is a great way. There are companies like Ambient Weather, Davis, Pete Brothers that manufacture APRS-enabled weather stations. They can be connected directly to the internet. You can have a thermometer, anemometer, and they're all effectively networked to a base station, and then that base station gets connected directly to the internet. And then by virtue of that traffic being fed into the APRS IS, it's available to people in other parts of the world. But you know, as long as they also have a radio connected to it, then it can be picked up by people within the area, local area, and again, you know, pull up weather information. You can turn on a radio, and as long as you're within proximity of somebody running one of these APRS-enabled weather stations, you'll actually get a like a broadcast message and see temperature, wind speed, information on those lines. There are software-enabled solutions out there. So if you have a weather station that is not APRS enabled out of the box, you can add APRS functionality to it. This weather display application in particular supports like over 100 different weather stations that are out there. So if you don't have one for data systems, can be pretty expensive. So in ambient weather, the peak weather systems are a little bit more on the affordable side. But if you already have a weather system, the chances are really good that you can actually APRS enable it by running one of these applications, whether it's weather display, media bridge, WX. Kind of a funny name, but it's actually a really, really powerful application.
Jeff, before you go on, like I come from New England, we have Mount Washington, which is reported to have the worst weather on earth. They can average 40 below zero and 140 mile per hour winds up there in an average day in January. But if you look at this, this is not all that hard, but you can take it and put it on top of a solar panel. There's no cell phone, there's no internet, nothing up there. You set up your weather station, and then you can sit in your house because you probably don't want to go out in 140 mile an hour winds to take the temperature. So that's what that is. That can be set up anywhere. Very awesome.
Kind of along the same lines is tracking. So we see a lot of storm chasers. Whether they're kind of like in the Midwest or in Tornado Alley or in the Southeast, where we call Dixie Alley now. It's kind of shifting from Tornado Alley over here to the Southeast. But tracking storm chasers, obviously we want to make sure these guys are out there chasing storms. They're as safe as possible. So there are a lot of times where there will be somebody at like more of a centralized location. They're tracking stations that are roaming around. We created this shortened URL here, so you can go to bit.ly/APRS-storm-chaser. That is actually a YouTube video that shows. So this screenshot over here on the left side came from that YouTube channel, YouTube video. Really, really fascinating. These tornado chasers. I believe this was in Oklahoma or Kansas. But we can actually see the track that this chaser took, and again, that information is going to really update in real time. So give you an idea of where these people are. Make sure that they continue moving. If they stop in a particular area or they just disappear, probably not a good sign. But at least gives people who are in a central location monitoring these chasers. It can really make the difference between life or death. So, another really interesting point about APRS is, again, it just works without infrastructure. So back in March 2020, folks may remember this, but a tornado passed right through downtown Nashville. They call it the Batman building, but it's the old Bell South AT&T building downtown. But the tornado basically hit that building, and that was kind of like central operations for much of the cellular network throughout the metro Nashville area, and basically took the entire cellular network down. Not just the consumer and business cellular, but there's another network called FirstNet, and that's designed for emergency responders and gives priority access to the cellular network. Even that got taken out. So a lot of the time we kind of take our cell phones for granted. I used to say you don't know what you got until it's gone. I think we have such a huge reliance on the cellular that we just take that for granted. We just assume that it's going to be there. It can disappear, and even if the cellular network does not go down, all the carriers have the ability to shut off consumer access to the cellular network and give exclusive access to emergency responders, because the cellular networks can get so congested that emergency responders can't use them. Guess what? APRS works great when that network is down. And so, it's funny, I remember there was a hurricane that went through the metro Atlanta area, where I live. I was sitting outside, pitch black. We were without power for 4 days. There were these two girls that were walking up the street in the middle of the night with their phones, looking at their phones. no cell phones, there was no power, right? Even the cell phone towers went down, and it was like the world had ended for them. So kids that have these things, they make phone calls too, believe it or not. But not being able to talk to their friends on Snapchat and get on Facebook and whatever. Again, we just kind of take it for granted that it's always going to be there until it's not. And a lot of times it's just a matter of, it's not a matter of if you're going to experience it so much as when. And, the question is then, are you prepared for it when it happens? Make sure you got your batteries correct, make sure your radio's programmed for you here, and you can exchange messages with people in real time. Search and rescue. This isn't just theoretical, this is actual. Something that's actually practiced. It is ideal for search and rescue in that it's very much possible for and very, very practical use, where somebody will be in a central station, they'll monitor, similar to like the tracking storm chasers. But whenever there's a search and rescue operation, they'll overlay a grid system, and then they'll actually track people as they move from grid square to grid square, and make sure that they know exactly where the search and rescue field operations teams are, where they've checked, where they haven't checked, and will guide people from one location to another. And they very much use APRS to do that. And how do we know that? Well, there's a group in New Zealand called Star Trek. I've got the URL up here, but if you just go to Google and search for Star Trek, it is the first result returned.
Or once again, we're going to have the slide presentations to grab one of these sheets before you leave, and all this info will be on the website.
Yeah, thank you. This search and rescue software, it is like commercial class software, and it is used by organizations at a commercial level, but it's free for non-commercial use and can run in what's referred to as CAM mode. So you can just use it kind of for like basic APRS usage on a day-to-day basis. But this is a screenshot of the application. You can see here that there are actual active tracks. So these are folks that are out in the fields that are searching for somebody. Obviously they're more or less going along trails that are down in the valley versus up here in the high points. But this gives them real-time information as to where the search and rescue folks are out in the field, and also shows a track to give you an idea over the past hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, however long they want to look at it. They can send messages in real time. They can make historical data. They can send images, and all back to this really, really amazing application. It's not too difficult to set up. They have great step-by-step directions on their site, and they're just a phenomenal group of guys. This has been built over several years, so it has become extremely feature-rich. It's absolutely amazing that they give it away for free. Thanks. So bots, what are bots? Well, bots can be kind of bad in that they we call a botnet in the internet security world. A group of computers used to attack, but bots are really systems that are intended to, you send them a message and they're designed to send a response of some sort. There are a wide variety of bots. In fact, we have a site called how.aprs.org. John Langer, WB2OSC, who is the author of Direwolf, which is the leading software TNC. He wrote an article called APRS Information Services. This is just a smattering of the bots that are available. Server and CQ server, very similar in nature. Now, that allows for group messaging. You can spot, so for soda, people doing soda and photo that they want to spot themselves, they can do that by sending a message to AP spot. The DAGA is specifically for soda. NFAB, you can get weather information, you can send a zip code, you can send your GPS coordinates, you can even ask it for a list of repeaters that are in the area. It will return the call sign, the frequency, the offset, the tone, and the distance. And so that'll give you an idea if you're ever in an area you don't have access to a repeater book or equivalent site, what's in the area. you can send messages into the national traffic system. You can even do a call sign lookup by sending a message to who is. There's even a WhatsApp gateway. There was a service called SMS GTE, which went offline. There's actually a replacement for SMS GTE, although I don't remember what it was off the top of my head when I was making the slide. So there are gateways. There's a gateway out there where you can actually send a message from an APRS-enabled radio to somebody who receives it as an SMS message, and then they can even respond to you from a cell phone, and it'll come out on your APRS network. Yes, sir?
It's just SMS.
Oh, it's just SMS, so that's the replacement for SMS GTE?
Yes.
All right.
Jim, so I see we have a POTA guy back there. You do POTA? Do you use APRS to spot yourself with POTA?
I don't, only because,
Could you stand up so people can hear?
yeah, so I don't use it for spotting, only because I don't have enough gateways in my area. But I'm working with the repeater coordinator just to fix that.
Cool.
The gateway motion or repeater sites.
Could you tell people a little bit about the
Yeah.
importance of spotting for POTA and so on?
For POTA, it's gotten a whole lot easier because more people are into it. But when you're out in the park, if you're trying to do a quick activation, by spotting yourself, it puts you on the POTA.app website, and that way people can find you easier. Because a lot of hunters from home are sitting there looking at their computer to find out where people are in the parks.
Right, because to activate, you need to get what, 10
10
contacts?
contacts,
Right.
and the UCC net.
So, you're in the park, you're all excited, but if you can't get somebody to talk to you, you can't do the activation. So, yes, you can use APRS to spot yourself. Sends it to the POTA web server so people know you're in the park. Same thing with SOTA. And the idea of bots is, let's say you were doing a special event like Hamcation, and you wanted people to be able to know where's the nearest restaurant. You could make a custom bot for that and have it. Go ahead.
Just a quick announcement. So I have been working the last couple of weeks setting up a bot for Florida. So APRS FL is now live. And probably going to go through a few more revisions, but it's similar to the APRS PH bot. Actually, it's based off the same code. So it's live. It'll be doing that. So it'll be doing a lot of other things in the future. So
I'm sorry, what does the bot do again? I just want to
it's very similar to APRS PH. It's based off the same code as APRS PH.
Okay.
So it's very similar to running nets like APRS Thursday. So,
Okay.
I was actually hoping to have a talk everybody here on the JL network, that became problematic.
And you
got
got
some
your
information, we'll put it up on the web.
Yeah, if you could come over just afterwards and just give us your information, please, that would be great. All right, other place where the APRS used a lot is in supporting races. So like the Boston Marathon. I live in Atlanta where, John is a little bit north there, but that's kind of in this region, but it's been used since the early or mid 80s, 30 years plus. In Atlanta, the Peachtree Road Race, which is the largest, I think the largest 5K in the world. I've worked at events multiple times. We've got folks that are actually tracking runners and cyclists, tracking the location of the vehicles that are out on the field, keeping people in touch with loved ones. Again, cellular networks can get really, really congested to the point where you can't make a call, you can't send or receive text messages, and in a lot of cases we'll have hams that are actually out on the course. They wear a vest, they identify themselves, and they can actually use APRS to send and receive messages to people in other areas. We've got people that are in medical tents. They really provide just absolutely invaluable communications that are available all along the racetracks. Peachtree Road Race in particular is on the 4th of July. Atlanta's kind of going to be a little hot and humid in July. There's actually a part of the course called Cardiac Hill, which is pretty nasty. Last year I was working the event, 2 people died on Cardiac Hill. Medical conditions are real. That scared the heck out of me. It's my first time in like 5 or 6 years working that event where that actually happened. Being able to keep track of loved ones is, incredibly important. High altitude balloons, APRS is used a lot for tracking high altitude balloons. And we talk about high altitude, we're talking over 80,000 feet to 120,000 feet. These balloons can just kind of stay in a general area if the winds aren't too great. They can also go pretty much clear across the world. There's track devices like what we see here in that tiny little picture down at the bottom that are 20, 30 bucks. So if the balloon becomes unrecoverable, it goes away. It's only 20 or 30 bucks. The balloon costs a heck of a lot more than that. At burst altitude, how high does that balloon go before it goes pop? Descent paths, so you want to go out and recover that balloon. APRS is great, and it is used very, very regular. There's a website, I didn't put the link up here, but called HAB. So HAB is short for high altitude balloon, but HAB is a great place to track where the high altitude balloons are. The Golden Packet event is actually how John and I met. Another event that was created by Bob Bruniga. This is, we have anywhere from 15, 16, 17 digipeters all on 2,200 plus mile length of the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine, or I guess you could say Maine to Georgia. Either way, you'd be right. We actually have the ability to send messages the entire length of the Appalachian Trail. And we've done it successfully multiple times. We do go some years where it is unsuccessful, but we have done it successfully. I would say when what we call the Golden Packet is the one that makes it the length of the trail. When the Golden Packet actually makes it from one end to the other, let me tell you, that is an absolutely amazing feeling. I've worked, given my living in Atlanta, I've worked the station in Springer Mountain, or Mount Oglethorpe area, if you guys are familiar with there. Mount Oglethorpe is the original southern terminus. John works Mount Washington, but as you mentioned earlier, he's also worked at Sugarloaf. And again, we've got stations the whole length of the trip. The event is always the third Saturday of July. atgoldenpacket.net, I run that website. You can go get information about the event. We're going to have the sign-up sheet coming up pretty soon. And I'm going to have to cruise through these slides because we're almost out of time. APRS can be kind of as difficult as you want it to be because it's great for tinkerers, but it can also be super easy. It can be a little challenging to kind of wrap your head around at first. What I recommend is don't focus on the technology. Focus on what you want to do with APRS and then look at what you need to actually do it. What's the best way to figure that out? Well, finding an Elmer that knows APRS is a great way. Finding somebody who's actively doing what you want to do. There's a lot of APRS mailing lists, whether on groups.io. Tapper has a list called the APRS Special Interest Group, or APRS SIG. It's pretty easy to find people that are out there who are doing a lot with APRS. So you can find whether if you want to run a weather station, you want to pass packets off the International Space Station. You can get, if you want to unload a lot of money into like a Kenwood HT or their forthcoming mobile, you can do that. Or you can spend 30 bucks and get into APRS really inexpensively. You find out you don't like it, it's not for you. You didn't put a whole lot into it. Again, build it or buy it. You can start off with something as simple as a 2-meter radio. 14439 is the national APRS frequency. Other parts of the world it can be different, but 14439 is the most prevalent. With an audio interface and a piece of software called Direwolf. We've actually found that this particular mobile radio was released in 2013. Again, Kenwood's got a new mobile that's coming out, hopefully later on this year. We may hope to find out more today. But Direwolf is a software-based TNC. We've actually found it does a better job than the Kenwood, believe it or not. We do consider Kenwood as like the gold standard for APRS. Yaesu, the FT3DR, the FT5DR, some of their mobile radios have APRS support. Very, very solid. But these are ways that you can get started with APRS. You want to get connected to the APRS IS, you don't even need a radio. Yes, you can connect the radio to the software, but if all you need is an internet connection, free piece of software, and we call it passcode. So passcode is really a 5-digit number. You can send an email out or go on the passcode group on groups.io. The request a passcode, you get it in a day or two, and then you plug it into one of these APRS-enabled applications. Again, APRS ISCE 34, APRS IS 32 is originally written for Windows CE. Gives you an idea of how long it's been around. 10-point APRS is another Windows application, really, really nice. QTH.app is written for the Mac. Yes, there's actually a Hamration app for the Mac. And Zaster, which is an open source application used a lot by folks running Linux or on a Raspberry Pi, which is obviously running Linux but on an ARM platform. A lot of options out there. How.aprs.works. I didn't realize .works was a top-level domain. I work for a company called Cloudflare. Every once in a while, domains are like potato chips. You can't just have one. I buy domains pretty regularly. John is our acting treasurer for the foundation. He's probably not too thrilled with me. I bought another one last night. I haven't told him yet. You just found out that it was $11. I think he'll get over it. But they do add up. But how.aprs.works. So you guys may be familiar with aprs.org. We're kind of a snapshot at that site, and it's being maintained for historical purposes, but how.aprs.works is really kind of the new home for the freshest, latest information about APRS.
Yeah, if you're like the Homer Simpson like me, you want to know the basics, it's on here. And if you want to write articles, we'd love to have you submit stuff. Your stories, what you're doing with it, how you got into it, please send it to us. And it's like blog posts on here, and we're trying to collect it up, and there's so much. And that's the place to go to, like the glossy magazine as opposed to the technical journal.
Yeah, it's not just the foundation that's writing stuff for this site. Anybody who is, savvy with APRS or wants to share their experience, you can actually send your story to stories@aprsfoundation.org, and we'll publish your story on the site as long as you provide us permission to. And there's other ways that you can contribute. Who is the APRS founder? You couldn't sit through this without learning a little bit about what John and I do. We started a 501c3 nonprofit. The IRS actually gave us a public charity 50982, which I never heard of before. There's currently 5 of us that are on the executive team. Myself, John Langer, WB2OC, the author of Direwolf. Jason Rauch, K4APR. You can tell the APR, he kind of likes APRS. He even went and got a call sign with it, most of it in there. He really tinkers a lot in the hardware space. And then the most recent addition to our executive team, John Barr. We keep pushing for him to get his ticket. I think we pretty much got him convinced, but you don't need to be a ham to be interested in APRS by any means. What are we doing? Well, we're really interested in keeping APRS not just alive, but innovating with APRS and really ensuring that it not only does it continue the way that it is, but we're out there, we're educating people. We are the keepers of, so you may be familiar with it, there's a PDF out there called APRS 101.pdf. That is the APRS protocol specification. So anybody who wants to implement APRS, whether it's in a radio, it's in one of these APRS IS enabled applications, they have to follow the protocol spec for compatibility. Again, we run how.aprs.works. We've fully taken over aprs.org at this point. We just fired up, it actually went online Wednesday night, Thursday morning. We're running a tier 1 server now, so there's 9 tier 1 servers. We are one of them. We're hosting Zen server and CQ server. And guess what? We're really big advocates of APRS, which is why we're here talking to you. We plan on going to other events, whether it's Dayton or Huntsville or other parts of the country. So how can you get involved? Well, you can become a member of the foundation. We would love to have you become a member of the foundation because guess what? It actually does cost money. That's the reality. Money makes the world go around. By making a contribution to the foundation, we charge $20 a year for membership. Your contribution really helps not just our day-to-day operations. We do this for free. We don't take salary or anything from this. We are not aware of any other organization in the world, not even just APRS, but any other nonprofit that's doing things in a similar fashion to what we are doing. There's another organization called APRS. They actually own the trademark. They're not even doing what we're doing. You can donate to, $1 is great. We'll take anything. Every little bit counts. Again, you can go to APRSfoundation.org. Even if you don't remember the /membership or donations part of it, there are links across the top of the page. And you guys are going to hear it first. So the APRS Foundation is doing our very first APRS Summit. It's going to be the Saturday before Dayton, and so May 10th. We're looking to do a full day long event, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. to at least 4 or 5 p.m. We're going to have a pretty wide variety of speakers. We're not ready to reveal who we're going to have speaking or the different topics. That is coming up. You can join us on groups.io. We'll have information about that. But really, this is our first, right? I mean, we've been around for 2.5 years, but we really kicked into high gear back in July, August timeframe of 2024. And we're firing on all cylinders now. This is going to be huge. And guess what? It's free if you're a member. So $20 per year, you get into the summit for free. If you're not a member, it's $15. So for an extra $5, you can become a member of the foundation and really help support APRS. We would very much love to have you, be involved with us. You can contribute as much or as little time as you want. We're happy to take it. And we are right on the cusp of how much time we have left. I am so sorry that I went from 25 miles an hour.
That's an online event.
Yeah.
So you can get it anywhere.
Yeah, you don't have to travel
And
anywhere.
we would love it. There's someone here that would like to present. We're looking for speakers because you guys have a much better story of what you're doing than what we have. We're group thinking. So if you'd like to present, please. And if you have questions at this point, we probably could take we got like 3 minutes for questions.
Just a quick question on the APRS Tier 2 network. What's the best source of information and the best way to get involved in something like hosting an APRS Tier 2 server?
So it's actually...
Want to repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was if you wanted to run, running a Tier 1 server, there's two different rings of servers. There's Tier 1, which is really the core, and then anybody who wants to run a Tier 2 server can. APRS2.net, the number APRS, the number 2.net is where you go to find out about how to run a Tier 2 server. It really is pretty easy to do. You don't need a machine with a lot of horsepower. You can easily run it like in a VPS in the cloud or even on a VM at home, or if you got an older computer, you can do that. But APRS2.net is the place to go for that.
And Jeff, if he waited like a week, could he go to how APRS works and find something to get started?
Not yet. We don't have an article on it yet, but yeah, we can put something up there. And if anybody else is running a Tier 2 server and is interested in contributing an article, we would love to have that too.
Other questions?
Yeah, this gentleman was next.
So I don't know if anybody here is not familiar with APRS, but if you have an iPhone or have you ever used Find My Friends? Find My Friends is basically a ripoff of APRS.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, it really is. I never thought about it that way, but it is. In fact, there is an APRS.fi application for iOS. There are Android equivalents. You can access the application with a browser, but the APRS.fi app for iOS is great. Again, Hesu is a good friend of the foundation. He's one of the biggest contributors. Any other questions?